Well, it's always a surprise what animal we're going to have on when it comes to the Center for Wildlife. And today we have a turtle.
We love turtles. This is Percy the spotted turtle. It makes sense because we can see his spots. And of course, we have Kristen Lamb, Executive Director of the Center for Wildlife here. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Katie and Jeb. Thank you for having us.
I forgot how small Percy is.
I know. He's such a little peanut.
And look at the legs. They're going. He wants to like sprint or something, which we know they can't sprint. But
yeah. So spotted turtles are a smaller species in general. He also, unfortunately, had been taken from the wild. Someone tried to make him a pet for his first 5 years of life, and so he was fed like turtle pellets instead of his proper nutrition. So he's about 1.5 times smaller than what he would be in the wild.
Oh, that's sad.
But they still are really sweet, special little turtles out there in the wild. I can't believe they exist. They're so beautiful and adorable.
Yeah, where if this turtle was out in the wild, where would this turtle be right now with the cold weather and everything?
Yeah, so I love talking about Percy and his habitat. They are a threatened species, which means they could be on the brink of being endangered. And they have a really specialized habitat. They live in vernal pools in the forest. So those are depressions that were made by the glaciers, and they fill up with snow melt. And they freeze. So this time of year, these guys are nestled underneath moss, under the dirt, under these vernal pools, and they have slowed their cardiovascular systems and metabolisms down, and they are brumating, which is the word for a turtle's hibernation.
I love that so much.
So this one, so how big did it get? These are small, almost like pygmy turtles or something.
Yeah,
right?
they're a small species. So the males would be about that big. The females would be just slightly bigger. The females tend to be larger because they're carrying the eggs on the sides of their bodies underneath their shells. And so they're just a smaller species. And I brought this too for comparison.
Oh, big difference.
This is a snapping turtle shell, and we actually have, and they're a green color. This one had been shellacked by a local gentleman after he found just the shell in the forest. But we have a big turtle of this size in care right now.
Wow.
She's overwintering with us, and she'll be released in the spring. People were installing a dock in April. She was under the water, hibernating, just really sluggish, and one of the dock posts came down on her shell. And we can't believe that she survived.
That's incredible.
The weight of a dock on these turtles, it really goes to show like their adaptation 220 million years ago of this really strong shell is pretty incredible.
Will the shell grow back?
Yeah, so the shell is made out of bone, which I thought would be cool to show this.
Look at this. This is part of them, you
right.
know?
Yep, it's their vertebrae. So it's their vertebrae, and then their shell is made out of bone. On top of it, they have layers, this kind of thinner layer here of keratin, which is the same material our fingernails are made out of. So we have a specialized bracketing system that we use and other rehabilitators throughout the Northeast. We learned it from the New England Aquarium. And so we can bracket either side of the fracture, wire over the top like braces, and pull the shell back together, and then the bone will knit back together. And turtles are also incredible. She had lost a portion of her shell. They can grow tissue and then recalcify it, so they can basically grow new bone.
That's incredible.
I love them.
When do you hope that she'll be released?
So we're hoping that she'll be released. We like to release them back when the temperatures are consistently about 50 degrees. So she's really almost completely healed. We're just waiting for the hibernation period to be over. So hopefully the end of April, she'll go back to her home, and she has a whole community behind her. A lot of people rescued her. It's a small town in New Hampshire, and they've all been checking in on her, and they can't wait for her to return back to this town. She's kind of famous.
Oh, wait, what's her name?
She doesn't have a name.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever you guys suggest.
Well, we should let them decide, the people who rescued her. But I want to keep following it. You should send us pictures when you release her. That'd be great.
Yeah, it's to tell her to stay away from the dock,
right.
so this doesn't happen again, right?
I know.
Well, you just never know with the water.
Right.
I know. Yeah, it certainly was not intentional, and it was great. The neighbors kind of were walking by and saw her struggling kind of at the top of the water, and then they saw she was bleeding, and so they took action.
What did the difference between, what does this, the big turtle eat, and what is compared to this one?
Yes, Percy.
This tiny little thing.
He's so sweet. I just love talking about them because people often don't think about like wildlife connection to human health. And so spotted turtles, they have this great camouflage. Yep. They're in dark waters in the forest that are stagnant, so they don't get any, there's no inflow. It's just, and it completely dries out in the summertime too, so there's no fish that live in those vernal pools. When he emerges, it's filled with like mosquito larvae, and that's like the first thing that he is eating. So these guys actually control a lot of the mosquito population, even though they're invisible in these little dark forests or pools in the forest. So he would eat a lot of that, like insect larvae, certainly some like frog or spotted salamander eggs for protein. And then he does eat a lot of like plants and grasses that would be floating on top of the water. These guys are top predators in their ecosystem, and a lot of people get grumpy about snapping turtles because they have stories of how they ate a duckling or competed with them, you know, people for fishing, but we always have to remember that our top predators, the wild animals, are always keeping everything in perfect balance. So if they're maintaining like duck populations, they're preventing the spread of disease on the pond and the lake, salmonella, things like that. They also are balancing populations so that the geese and duck and, you know, mergansers don't get to a population where they would starve because they're overpopulated. So these guys are definitely big meat eaters.
The circle of life.
Yes,
exactly.
That's true.
Yeah.
What's the #1 thing that we can do to protect turtles like this little guy?
Yeah, so I think we're coming into a really fun time of year as everything, well, it finally is freezing, but as we get into like March, things will start to thaw, and then you'll start to hear like wood frogs calling, and really vernal pool specific species. So documenting and like paying attention to where those very special mystical ponds that dry up completely in the summer are, so that you can protect them in your neighborhoods and in your backyards. People used to throw garbage in these holes in the woods in the summertime, or fill it up with leaves or use it as dumping grounds, but they're really these like, they look like they're empty because in the summer they completely dry up, but they are such special habitats for species like these. So just starting to, you know, walk around in your neighborhoods, take a listen, look for these really special spots, and then protect them. Spring is the time to document all that.
Okay,
We have 10 seconds. I just want to ask, why do they pull their heads in? Like
For protection,
Okay,
so he can pull
He's
himself all the
afraid
way
of
in.
you. Afraid of you.
And he, that's where the word turtleneck comes from.
There you go.
Makes total
Because he can pull
sense.
himself all the way
next
inside
time I
his
wear
collar.
mine. There you go.
And he's making a fashion statement.
Yes,
We love
exactly.
it. Kristen, thank you so much. Where can people learn more? Tell everyone your website.
Yeah, so they can go to the centerforwildlife.org. We have tons of events and ways to get involved. We'd love
it.
to
There's
see
always
you.
something going on.
Can't wait for the next animal to come on.
I know, we're so excited. All right.